Grantline led us. We held about level. 500 feet beneath us the brigand ship lay, cradled on the rocks. When it was still a mile away from us I could see all its outline fairly clearly in the dimness. Its tiny hull windows were dark, but the blurred shape of the hull was visible, and above it the rounded cap of dome, with a dim radiance beneath it. We followed Grantline's platform. It was rising, drawing the others after it like a tail. I touched Anita where she lay beside me with her head half in the small hooded control bank. Going too high. She nodded, but followed the line nevertheless. It was Grantline's command. I lay crouched, holding the inner tips of the flexible side shields. The bottom of the platform was covered with the insulated fabric. There were 2 side shields. They extended upward some 2 feet, flexible so that I could hold them out to see over them, or draw them up and in to cover us. They afforded a measure of protection against the hostile rays, though just how much we were not sure. With the platform level, a bolt from beneath could not harm us unless it continued for a considerable time. But the platform, except upon direct flight, was seldom level, for it was a frail, unstable little vehicle. To handle it was more than a question of the controls. We balanced, and helped to guide it with the movement of our bodies, shifting our weight sidewise, or back, or forward to make it dip as the controls altered the gravity pull in its tiny plate sections. Like a bird, wheeling, soaring, swooping. To me, it was a precarious business. But now we were in straight flight diagonally upward. The outline of the brigand ship came directly under us. I crouched tense, breathless. Every moment it seemed that the brigands must discover us and loose their bolts. They may have seen us for some moments before they fired. I peered over the side shield down at our mark, then up ahead to get Grantline's firing signal. It seemed long delayed. An added glow down there must have warned Grantline that a shot was coming from there. The tiny red light flared bright on his platform. I turned on our Benson curve light radiance. We had been dark, but a soft glow now enveloped us. Its sheen went down to the ship to reveal us. But its curving path showed us falsely placed. I saw the little line of platforms ahead of us. They seemed to move suddenly sidewise. It was everyone for himself now. None of us could tell where the other platforms actually were placed or headed. Anita swooped us sharply down to avoid a possible collision. Greg? Yes. I'm aiming. I was making ready to drop the small explosive globe bomb. Our searchlight ray at the camp, answering Grantline's signal, shot down and bathed the enemy ship in a white glare, revealing it for our aim. Simultaneously the brigand bolts came up at us. I held my bomb out over the shield, calculating the angle to throw it down. The brigand rays flashed around me. They were horribly close. Miko had understood our sudden visible shift and aimed, not where we appeared to be, but approximately where we had been before. I dropped my bomb hastily at the glowing white ship. The touch of a hostile ray would have exploded it in my hand. I saw others dropping also from our nearby platforms. The explosions from them merged in a confusion of the white glare and a cloud of black mist as the brigands out on the rocks used their darkness bombs. We swept past in a blur of leaping hostile beams. Silent battle of lights. Darkness bombs down at the ship struggling to bar our camp search ray. The Benson radiance rays from our passing platforms, curving down to mingle with the confusion. The electronic rays sending up their bolts. Our platforms dropped some 10 dynamitrine bombs in that first passage over the ship. As we sped by, I dimmed the Benson radiance. I peered. We had not hit the ship. Or if we had, the damage was inconclusive. But on the rocks I could see a pile of our cart's scattered, broken wreckage, in which the litter of 2 or 3 projectors seemed strewn, and the gruesome deflated forms of several helmeted figures. Others seemed to be running, scattering, hiding in the rocks and pitholes. 20 brigands at least were outside the ship. Some were running over toward the base of our camp ledge. The darkness bombs were spreading like a curtain over the valley floor, but it seemed that some of the figures were dragging their projectors away. We sailed off toward the opposite crater rim. I remember passing over the broken wreckage of Grantline's little spaceship, the Comet. Nico's bolts momentarily had vanished. We had hit some of his outside projectors, the others were abandoned, or being dragged to safer positions. After a mile we wheeled and went back. I suddenly realized that only 4 platforms were in the reformed line ahead of us. One was missing. I saw it now, wavering down, close over the ship. A bolt leaped up diagonally from a distant angle on the rocks and caught the disabled platform. It fell, whirling, glowing red, disappeared into the blur of darkness like a bit of heated metal plunged into water. 1 out of 6 of our platforms already lost. 3 men of our small force gone. But Grantline led us desperately back. Anita caught his signal to break our line. The 5 platforms scattered, dipping and wheeling like frightened birds, blurring shapes, shifting unnaturally in flight as the Benson curve lights were altered. Anita now took our platform in a long swoop downward. Her tense, murmured voice sounded in my ears. "Hold off, I'll take us low." A melee. Passing platform shapes. The darting bolts, crossing like ancient rapiers. Falling blue points of fuse lights as we threw our bombs. Down in a swoop. Then rising. Away, and then back. This silent warfare of lights. It seemed that around me must be bursting a pandemonium of sound. Yet there was none. Silent, blurred melee, infinitely frightening. A bolt struck us, clung for an instant, but we weathered it. The light was blinding. Through my gloves I could feel the tingle of the overcharged shield as it caught and absorbed the hostile bombardment. Under me the platform seemed heated. My little Irens motors ran with ragged pulse. I got too much oxygen. I was dully smothering. Then the bolt was gone. I found us soaring upward, horribly tilted. I shifted over. Anita. Anita, dear, are you all right? Yes, Greg. All right. The melee went on. The brigand ship and all its vicinity were enveloped in dark mist now, a turgid sable curtain, made more dense by the dissipating heavy fumes of our exploding bombs which settled low over the ship and the rocks nearby. The searchlight from our camp strove futilely to penetrate the cloud. Our platforms were separated. One went by, high over us. I saw another dart close beneath my shield. God, Anita. Too close. I didn't see it. Almost a collision. Greg, haven't we broken the ship's dome yet? It seemed not. I had dropped nearly all my bombs. This could not go on much longer. Had it been only about 5 minutes? Only that? Reason told me so, yet it seemed an eternity of horror. Another swoop. My last bomb. Anita had brought us into position to fling it. But I could not. A bolt stabbed up from the gloom and caught us. We huddled, pulling the shields up and over us. Blurred darkness again. Too much to the side now. I had to wait while Anita swung us back. Then we seemed too high. I waited with my last bomb. The other platforms were occasionally dropping them. I had been too hasty, too prodigal. Had we broken the ship's dome with a direct hit? It seemed not. The brigands were sending up catapulted light flares. They came from positions on the rocks outside the ship. They mounted in lazy curves and burst over us. The concealing darkness, broken only by the flares of explosions, enveloped the enemy. Our camp searchlight was still struggling with it. But overhead, where the few little platforms were circling and swooping, the flares gave an almost continuous glare. It was dazzling, blinding. Even through the smoked pane which I adjusted to my visor, I could not stand it. But these were thoughts of comparative dimness. In a patch where the earthlight struck through the darkness of the rocks, I saw another of our fallen platforms. Snap and Venza? It was not they, but 3 figures of our men. One was dead. 2 had survived the fall. They stood up, staggering. And in that instant, before the turgid black curtain closed over them, I saw 2 brigands come rushing. Their hand projectors stabbed at close range. Our men crumpled and fell. We were in position again. I flung my last missile, watched its light as it dropped. On the dome roof 2 of Miko's men were crouching. My bomb was truly aimed, perhaps one of the few in all our bombardment which landed directly on the dome roof. But the waiting marksman fired at it with short-range heat projectors and exploded it harmlessly while it was still above them. We swung up and away. I saw, high above us, Grantline's platform, recognizing its red signal light. There seemed a lull. The enemy fire had died down to only a very occasional bolt. In the confusion of my whirling impressions, I wondered if Miko were in distress. Not that. We had not hit his ship, perhaps we had done little damage indeed. It was we who were in distress. 2 of our platforms had fallen, 2 out of 6. Or more, of which I did not know. I saw one rising off to the side of us. Grantline was over us. Well, we were at least 3. And then I saw the 4th. Grantline is calling us up, Greg. Grantline's signal light was summoning us from the attack. He was 1,000 feet or more above us. I was suddenly shocked with horror. The search ray from our camp suddenly vanished. Anita wheeled us to face the distant ledge. The camp light showed, and over one of the buildings was a distress light. Had the crack in our front wall broken, threatening explosion of all the buildings? The wild thought swept me. But it was not that. I could see light stabs from the cliff outside the main building. Miko had dared to send some men to attack our almost deserted camp. Grantline realized it. His red helmet light semaphored the command to follow him. His platform soared away, heading for the camp, with the other 2 behind him. Anita lifted us to follow. But I checked her. No. Off to the right, across the valley. But Greg. Do as I say, Anita. She swung us diagonally away from both the camp and the brigand ship. I prayed that we might not be noticed by the brigands. Anita, listen, I've got an idea. The attack on the brigand ship was over. It lay enveloped in the darkness of the powder gas cloud and its own darkness bombs. But it was uninjured. Miko had answered us with our own tactics. He had practically unmanned the ship, no doubt, and had sent his men to our buildings. The fight had shifted. But I was now without ammunition, save for 2 or 3 bullet projectors. Of what use for our platform to rush back? Nico expected that. His attack on the camp was undoubtedly made just for that purpose, to lure us back there. Anita, if we can get down on the rocks somewhere near the ship, and creep up unobserved in that blackness, I might be able to reach the manual hull lock, rip it open and let the air out. If I could get into its pressure chamber and unseal the inner slide, it would wreck the ship, Anita, exhaust all its air. Shall we try it? Whatever you say, Greg. We seemed to be unobserved. We skimmed close to the valley floor, a mile from the ship. We headed slowly toward it, sailing low over the rocks. Then we landed, left the platform. Let me go first, Anita. I held a bullet projector. With slow, cautious leaps, we advanced. Anita was behind me. I had wanted to leave her with the platform, but she would not stay. And to be with me seemed at least equally safe. The rocks were deserted. I thought that there was very little chance that any of the enemy would lurk here. We clambered over the pitted, scarred surface. The higher crags, etched with earthlight, stood like sentinels in the gloom. The brigand ship with its surrounding darkness was not far from us. No one was out here. We passed the wreckage of broken projectors and gruesome, shattered human forms. We prowled closer. The hull of the ship loomed ahead of us. All dark. We came at last close against the sleek metal hull side, slid along it to where I was sure the manual lock would be located. Abruptly I realized that Anita was not behind me. Then I saw her at a little distance, struggling in the grip of a giant helmeted figure. The brigand lifted her, turned, and ran. I did not dare fire. I bounded after them along the hull side, around under the curve of the pointed bow, down along the other side. I had mistaken the hull port location. It was here. The running, bounding figure reached it, slid the panel. I was only 50 feet away, not much more than a single leap. I saw Anita being shoved into the pressure lock. The Martian flung himself after her. I fired at him in desperation, but missed. I came with a rush. And as I reached the port, it slid closed in my face, barring me.